My successful, non-traditional career has been deemed fake by my family, and when my entitled brother demanded $45,000 for his luxury destination wedding, his toxic insult made me refuse every cent. I, 35F, have worked incredibly hard to get where I am. I'm an independent consultant specializing in machine learning and AI ethics, a niche field that requires continuous education and intense analytical skills. The payoff is a high income, full remote flexibility, and a challenging career I genuinely love. My younger brother, Liam, 30M, views this entirely differently. He has always operated under the belief that work only counts if it involves a daily commute, a physical office, and a clearly defined corporate structure. Liam is a perpetual job hopper in entry-level sales, always chasing the next quick commission, but never quite finding stability. He is perpetually behind on rent and relies on our parents and, indirectly me, to smooth over his financial crises. This disparity in our professional lives created a subtle but constant source of tension, an unspoken competition that I never engaged in, but which Liam clearly felt. He'd often make passive-aggressive comments about my internet money or the laziness of working from home. I learned long ago that defending my six-figure career against his outdated definition of work was pointless. I just continued to provide quiet financial support when the situation became dire, preferring peace over principle, a habit I now deeply regret. I was funding his comfort, which only seemed to fuel his contempt for my success. The history of me bailing out Liam is extensive and goes back over a decade. It started with small college loan payments he forgot about, escalated to covering his car insurance when he risked having his license suspended, and peaked 3 years ago when I effectively paid off a massive credit card debt he accrued. Trying to look successful for a previous girlfriend, my parents always facilitated these transactions, acting as the intermediary, which maintained the pretense that my help was family duty rather than Liam's entitlement. I never demanded repayment, viewing it as assistance for a struggling loved one, but I always expected gratitude and respect. What I received instead was more disdain. My financial success, because it was achieved in a field they didn't understand, was constantly minimized. Every time I offered help, the family narrative subtly shifted. I wasn't being generous. I was just making up for the fact that I didn't have a real life and had too much free time and disposable income from my internet games. This framing deeply bothered me, but the emotional cost of confronting the whole family about their warped perspective always seemed too high, especially since Liam's crises were always presented as emergencies demanding immediate action. I prioritized family peace over my own dignity. My role in the family has always been the odd one out. I'm the practical one, the academic one, and the one who moved 3 states away for opportunity. Liam is the golden child, the one who stayed close, who will provide the grandchildren, and who embodies the traditional values my parents hold dear. My career being outside the norm only intensified this division. My father once joked at a holiday dinner that my job was like being a professional video gamer, but for old people, and Liam had laughed the loudest. This constant, low-grade disrespect established a painful dynamic. My value was judged not by my achievements, but by my compliance with their societal norms. Because I was successful outside their box, my success was inherently deemed less legitimate. This chronic lack of respect made any interaction requiring financial aid deeply fraught, though I suppressed the anger. Liam knew exactly how much my remote, specialized work meant to me. He was aware of the intellectual rigor involved. Yet he consistently chose to use the family's pre-approved narrative that my work was trivial, to dismiss my value, making my financial contributions feel less like a gift and more like a tax on my perceived oddity. The engagement news arrived with characteristic fanfare. Liam proposed to his longtime girlfriend, Chloe, 30F, who is lovely but equally ambitious about social appearances. The proposal itself was elaborate. Hot air balloon, drone footage, the whole package, paid for, I later discovered, using a significant chunk of money he borrowed from our parents. The wedding, they assured everyone, would be even more spectacular. The announcement happened at a family brunch, where Liam and Chloe projected a slideshow outlining their vision. It wasn't a standard local ceremony. It was a 4-day luxury destination event in Santorini, Greece. The slideshow featured stunning infinity pools, sunset receptions, and fine dining menus. My parents beamed, clearly thrilled by the prestige this event would lend them among their social circle. I felt a knot of dread. Knowing Liam's financial history, I couldn't comprehend how they planned to finance a wedding of this scale. I mentally calculated the cost of flying 80 guests to the Aegean Sea, covering accommodation, and hosting multiple high-end events. My internal alarm bells were screaming, predicting exactly where this lavish fantasy would inevitably lead straight to my checking account. Later that afternoon, I managed to pull Liam aside, genuinely concerned. Liam, that plan is beautiful, but be honest with me, where is the money coming from? Have you seriously budgeted for a 4-day, 80-person international event? He waved his hand dismissively. We've done the math. The venue, the catering. The whole deal is around $65,000. We've saved about 10 grand, and mom and dad are kicking in 15. So we're only short about 40 grand. We'll figure it out. The casual way he dismissed a $40,000 deficit, which was roughly his annual salary, confirmed my worst fears. He had no real plan. The entire event was predicated on securing money from somewhere else. I pointed out that $65,000 was a conservative estimate for a Santorini wedding of that size, and that travel alone for the guests would be exorbitant, likely leading to low attendance. He simply shrugged, arguing that the exclusivity was part of the appeal. He was focused entirely on the image, the social media posts, the impressed guests, and zero on the financial logistics, or the reality that this wedding would financially cripple him and Chloe for years if he couldn't secure outside funding. The official ask didn't come until the following week, after he and Chloe had met with a high-end wedding planner, locking in some initial deposits that I suspect were non-refundable. He called me on a Tuesday morning, catching me between client calls. He started with an overly cheerful tone, asking about my current projects, which I knew was just buttering me up. He spent 5 minutes complimenting the coolness of my AI work, a stunning reversal from his usual mockery, which immediately put me on high alert. The conversation quickly shifted to their planning, detailing the cost of the venue rental and the gourmet catering package. He meticulously itemized the costs, lingering over the $45,000 total for those two specific line items, making sure the number landed heavily in the silence. He was setting the stage, employing a sales technique of anchoring a high price to make any subsequent offer seem reasonable. I waited, refusing to prompt him, forcing him to make the explicit request, because I needed the confrontation to be unequivocally his doing, not my assumption. I braced myself for the entitlement that I knew was coming, steeling my resolve to handle the conversation professionally, despite the absurdity of the situation. Finally, he dropped the bomb. So sis, here's the thing. Chloe and I were talking, and we realized that with your flexible income, and since you don't have a massive family or mortgage like the rest of us, this is a perfect opportunity for you to really contribute. He paused for dramatic effect. We're going to cover the photography, flights, and entertainment, but we were hoping you could take care of the heavy lifting. The venue and the catering. That $45,000 we talked about, the audacity was breathtaking. He wasn't asking for a gift. He was assigning me a massive financial responsibility, treating my savings as a family escrow account. I nearly dropped the phone. The sheer casualness of the request was the most insulting part, as if $45,000 was equivalent to asking me to pick up a carton of milk on my way home. I had to clarify to ensure I hadn't misunderstood his intention. Liam, just to be crystal clear, you are asking me to write a check for $45,000 to fund the most expensive parts of your luxury wedding in Greece. He confirmed it cheerfully. Exactly. It's the perfect way to show your support and give us the wedding we deserve. You won't even notice it's gone. I took a moment to formulate a response that was rational, non-confrontational, and generous, yet firm. I wanted to demonstrate that the issue wasn't the money, but the entitlement. Liam, I'm happy for you both, but paying for 70% of a $65,000 wedding is not feasible, nor is it a reasonable request. My income is substantial, but I save and invest deliberately for my own financial security and retirement. My income is not disposable, and it's not a communal family resource, I continued, trying to pivot back to a reasonable gifting level. However, I love you and want to contribute meaningfully. I can offer a very generous wedding gift of $5,000. That is a significant sum and would be a great start for your honeymoon fund or for any unexpected costs. The $5,000 was more than I had given anyone ever for a wedding. It was a substantial, loving gift. Liam's response was immediate and entirely negative. He didn't even acknowledge the generosity of the offer. He immediately dismissed it as paltry and insulting, pivoting to emotional blackmail and making it clear that the only acceptable answer was the full $45,000, framing the $5,000 as an act of disrespect rather than a generous gesture. The moment I said $5,000, Liam's tone went from cheerful sales pitch to petulant demand. $5,000? Are you serious? You just made more than that on one of your consulting reports, didn't you? That's barely enough to cover the photographer's second shooter. Chloe is going to be so disappointed. She thought you would be excited to do this for us. He started listing everything. I supposedly didn't have to worry about the mortgage, the kids, the debt, as if my financial discipline were a punishment he had to endure. He brought up every previous financial aid I had given him, weaponizing my past generosity. After everything I went through and all the times you helped me out, you're going to hold back now? This is my wedding, my once-in-a-lifetime chance. You have the money just sitting there, doing nothing. He even implied I was intentionally trying to ruin their dream wedding because I was secretly jealous of his perfect life with Chloe, a classic projection of his own insecurity. I held my composure, reiterating that the $5,000 was my final and generous offer, and that I would not discuss the $45,000 again. I tried one last time to appeal to his rationality, which was clearly a lost cause. Liam, your wedding budget is over 3 times your annual income. That's financially irresponsible. You need to scale back your plans to something you and Chloe can actually afford. My money is for my future, not for subsidizing a 4-day Greek vacation for 80 people. I will not enable you to start your marriage with 5 figures of debt simply because you want a luxury backdrop. My rational breakdown of their poor planning only seemed to infuriate him further, as it exposed the unsustainable fantasy he was living in. The silence on the line stretched, and I knew I had pushed him past his manipulative, pleading phase and into outright hostility. He was breathing heavily, and I could hear him muttering under his breath before he spoke again, his voice tight and dripping with contempt. I braced myself, knowing the respect barrier was about to shatter completely. I was prepared for anger, for insults about my character, or even threats of involving our parents, but nothing prepared me for the specificity specificity and cruelty of the low blow he was about to deliver, targeting the one thing I valued most, the intellectual validity of my profession. He unleashed the insult, and the shift in my mental state was instantaneous. It wasn't just anger. It was a cold, complete clarity. He started by sneering, "You hoard all that money you make doing whatever code wizardry you do online." He made the quote-unquote gesture for code wizardry, even though I couldn't see him. Then he delivered the fatal line. "It's not like you earned it with a real, respectable degree, sitting in an office like a normal person. You play on a computer all day? You're just a glorified digital artist who got lucky with some fad tech. You should be grateful you have the chance to use that disposable income for something meaningful, like family." The insult was a masterclass in entitlement, simultaneously dismissing my advanced education, the complexity of AI consulting, and the hours of specialized work I put in. It wasn't just a jab. It was a deliberate attempt to delegitimize my success and, by extension, my right to keep the money I earned. In his mind, because the family didn't approve of the how I made the money, he felt entitled to the what. The moment he called me a glorified digital artist, all the years of suppressed resentment, the minimized accomplishments, and the mockery I had endured crystallized. The emotional exhaustion vanished, replaced by a fierce, protective anger. I didn't yell. I lowered my voice, making it dangerous and completely firm. "Liam," I said slowly, "I am a successful, financially independent woman with a specialized, highly valuable career. I just offered you a gift of $5,000, which is more than generous. That offer is now rescinded. Every cent. The answer is zero. You will receive nothing for your wedding." He tried to interrupt, spluttering denials and claiming he didn't mean it. But I cut him off sharply. "I don't care what you meant. I care about what you said. You do not disrespect my career, my intellect, or my hard work, and then expect me to fund your irresponsible lifestyle. You have fundamentally misunderstood the nature of generosity. You confused my kindness with an obligation, and you confused your dream with my bank account." I paused for a beat, letting the full weight of the absolute refusal sink in. Then, before he could recover, I disconnected the call, my hand shaking not from panic, but from the adrenaline of drawing a final, unwavering boundary. I sat in silence for 10 minutes after hanging up, letting the realization of what I had done settle in. It felt incredible, like severing a toxic umbilical cord that had bound me to their control for decades. My first step was immediate and protective. I logged into all my banking accounts and credit card statements, reviewing them for any unauthorized transactions or shared access points. I immediately changed all my account passwords and enabled two-factor authentication on everything, ensuring my finances were hermetically sealed from any further attempts by Liam or my parents. I then drafted a brief factual email to my parents, preempting Liam's inevitable frantic call to them. The email stated simply, "Due to Liam's incredibly disrespectful and insulting comments regarding my professional life, I have withdrawn my offer of a wedding gift. I will not be contributing any funds whatsoever to his wedding. This decision is final. Any further attempt to pressure me will result in me not attending the wedding and severely limiting contact." I hit send, knowing I had just declared war, but feeling profoundly liberated by the decision to prioritize my self-respect. The phone rang almost instantly. It was my mother. Her tone wasn't pleading. It was commanding, laced with furious disappointment. "What in God's name did you do?" "Liam is hysterical. You hung up on him, and now you're threatening to cut off contact? Over what? A silly little comment?" She immediately minimized the insult, which was her standard operating procedure for dealing with family conflicts. Prioritize Liam's emotional state over my legitimate grievance. I remained calm, forcing her to confront the issue. "Mom, Liam didn't make a silly comment. He aggressively demanded $45,000 from my savings and then belittled my entire career, saying I hadn't earned the money properly. I am not paying for his luxury wedding. He needs to realize that his financial reality doesn't support his taste." My mother scoffed. "He was just stressed. He needs this wedding for his career contacts. And what difference does it make how you earned the money? You can make that money back in a month. This is about supporting your brother on his big day, not holding on to money you made playing internet games." My mother doubled down on the gaslighting, attempting to reframe my justified anger as a malicious overreaction. "You're being shameful and petty. You always have to make everything a drama, don't you? Liam just needs a head start. You should be using your success to lift up your family, not hoard it. Your father and I agree. You need to apologize for upsetting Liam and write the check, or at least send the $5,000. You're ruining his dream because you can't take a little jab about my career." She painted a picture where my refusal would lead to the immediate collapse of the wedding, making me the villain responsible for crushing Liam's happiness. She used every angle, guilt, duty, and shame to try to break my resolve. The constant repetition of internet games and the demand that I use my disposable income for his meaningful event only reinforced that she completely aligned with Liam's dismissive view of my professional life. She was essentially saying my self-respect was worth less than her son's social fantasy. I realized then that my parents were not neutral parties. They were active enforcers of Liam's entitlement. After my mother failed, my father called, adopting the role of the calm, disappointed patriarch. He didn't yell. He sighed deeply and spoke in measured, guilt-inducing tones. "Sweetheart, your mother and I are worried. This is not you. We taught you better than this. Family comes first." He didn't deny Liam's insult, but immediately minimized it. "Liam was speaking out of stress. He's under a lot of pressure with this wedding. It was poor form, yes, but you know know how he is. You're the older sister, the successful one. You need to be the bigger person and let this go. He then tried the responsibility angle. This wedding is locked in, sweetie. Deposits are down. If you don't step in, they will lose everything. You need to bail them out just this once for the family's sake. Otherwise, they start their marriage drowning in debt, and that's on you. I countered that their financial choices were their own responsibility, and that if they lost the deposits, it would be a valuable, if expensive, lesson in fiscal prudence. My father ended the call with a chilling pronouncement. If you don't fix this, you will destroy this family. Think very carefully about what you are choosing. The sheer weight of the combined pressure from both parents was immense, but the core of my conviction remained solid. I sent a final text message to the family group chat, keeping it short and non-emotional. My decision stands. I will not contribute financially to Liam and Chloe's wedding. Their plans are irresponsible, and Liam's behavior was unacceptable. I will not enable either. If the pressure continues, or if my professional choices are mocked again, I will not attend the wedding, and all contact with those involved in the pressure campaign will be limited. This public stance felt essential. I needed to move the conflict from a private negotiation, where they could control the narrative, to a public boundary, where my terms were clear. My decision was fundamentally about more than money. It was about reclaiming the respect they had spent years chipping away at. I refused to let my hard-earned financial stability be the family's reward for disrespecting me. I was choosing self-respect and responsible boundaries over their definition of family, loyalty, and enabling Liam's perpetual adolescence. Liam tried a different tactic a day later, desperate, tearful pleading. He called me, his voice shaking, claiming he was now facing severe penalties for canceling the venue and that Chloe was furious with him. He apologized for the insult, but it was a hollow, conditional apology clearly driven by financial panic. I'm sorry I said that about your job, okay? It was mean and stupid. But please, sis, you have to understand, I panicked. The wedding is my future, and if you just help me, I'll pay you back. I promise. We can't lose the venue, it's humiliating. The money is literally nothing to you, just a fraction of your annual earnings. Please don't let a stupid argument ruin my life. The conditional apology immediately followed by minimizing my income and redemanding the money only confirmed his continued entitlement. He wasn't sorry for his disrespect. He was only sorry that his disrespect had cost him the wedding funds. I calmly reiterated my stance. The $45,000 demand was unacceptable, and the insult ensured I would not contribute even a gift. I suggested he call the venue and move the event to a local park. Once my parents and Liam realized I was immovable, the pressure shifted to the extended family, my aunts, uncles, and cousins. The calls and texts started flooding in, orchestrated by my mother. They uniformly adopted the narrative that I was being petty and vindictive. Aunt Carol called me a narcissist for thinking my pride was more important than family harmony. Cousin Mark texted me that I was jealous that Liam was finally getting his life together and getting married before I did, ignoring the fact that I am in a happy long-term relationship. They all centered on the theme that I had plenty of money and was maliciously withholding it to punish Liam for a temporary lapse of judgment. No one addressed the financial recklessness of the wedding, the audacity of the original ask, or the fundamental disrespect of the insult. They simply viewed my wealth as a shared resource, and my refusal as a hostile act against the collective. The sheer volume of external judgment was designed to make me crack, overwhelming me with the fear of being isolated from the entire family unit. I now face total isolation from my immediate family, save for the few relatives who quietly sided with me, acknowledging Liam's severe entitlement. The wedding is now in jeopardy. Liam is struggling to secure a fraction of the necessary funds and is facing massive cancellation fees. My parents are giving me the silent treatment, treating me like a pariah who single-handedly ruined their dreams of a luxury, Greek photo op. I feel a profound sadness over the loss of my relationship with my family, especially my parents who chose to enable their son's entitlement over protecting their daughter's dignity. However, I also feel a deep, quiet strength. I stood up for my career, my financial autonomy, and my boundaries. I finally stopped enabling a toxic dynamic that had defined my family relationships for years. My money is now secure and my self-respect is intact. I have chosen not to be the family's ATM or punching bag. AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's financially irresponsible, lavish destination wedding after he insulted my high-paying career and entitlement. I need perspective.